Hello and welcome to Superpower Broadcasting. I'm Kevin Castley. Thank you for tuning in tonight. Just for those in the chat, if you could let me know, I'm not 100% sure if my audio is good right now. I'm getting an alert that my connection is unstable, but I'm not sure if that's affecting my audio quality. So if you could inform me on that, I would appreciate it. Today, Secretary of State Antony Blinken gave a speech in which he outlined some of the Biden administration's foreign policy doctrine. Actually, we have a very awesome analyst here tonight to actually go over this. We have Anthony Roberto joining us. How's it going tonight, Anthony?
Pretty good. How are you?
Thanks for coming on. Well, your audio sounds fine. How does my audio sound?
Sounds pretty good. I saw we're going over Tony Blinken.
Yes, so I have the full footage here. So this is from Reuters. It's about a 25-minute speech in which he lays out the foreign policy doctrine. Thanks to the folks at StreamYard, they've actually upped their game to the point where we don't have to replay the video if I stop it at any point. We can analyze this as he's speaking, or we can pause it to discuss. And so I already watched this a little bit earlier. I don't want to give too much away, but there's some disappointing elements and everything. Before we get into it, just let the people know where they can find you. And if you could kind of not give your thoughts on the speech, but kind of, give your sentiment going into it,
For this video, I haven't watched this one specifically because I've been there's been a lot of stuff that's going on today.
That's true. That's true.
I haven't gotten a look at it. So, I guess when it comes to Tony Blinken, he's been more of a liberal internationalist. He's been like that at least since the 80s, I think. At least ever since he's been, big in the government. I know in the 90s he was pro intervention into Yugoslavia, into Serbia and whatnot. I think he wanted to go into Rwanda too, but obviously it didn't happen. I know he wanted to go into Afghanistan, and other places like that. I don't know how he thinks about Iraq, but I know that in a lot of areas, he's been very big into intervention, whether it be humanitarian or military. He believes that the United States is a force for good in the world, to prop up liberal democracy, and to be against dictators and whatnot, because he sees atrocities as something that we have to take care of. We can't just let this go on. I know he wanted to go into Syria. I know we want to go to other places. So yeah, he's a pretty big guy. I think sometimes people just disregard him just because he's a Democrat, and it's I could kind of see that, but at the same time, I think people have to kind of look into people before they cross any judgment.
Right.
And yeah, and again, I think for some stuff I don't agree with him on, other stuff I do. I think for what he is, he's pretty good, and yeah. I think he's making some good moves that are definitely better than the Obama administration. It's far better than having people like Ben Rhodes and whatnot. So I think this is a very no. I actually think this is a genuine big upgrade from our last Secretary of State's. Honestly.
No, absolutely. Then of course you had Tillerson, who
Yeah, he was
a mixed bag, honestly.
Yeah.
I mean, because you had the cushiness with the Kremlin, but then you had some tougher rhetoric vis-a-vis Pyongyang and Tehran. But then you had, of course, Pompeo, and Pompeo was basically an apparatchik. I know some people consider him a neocon and stuff, and it's yeah, we can disagree on that, but
Yeah, so again, I think this is a pretty massive upgrade. So anyways, did you want to play the video?
Yeah. So like I said, it's a bit long, but longer than what we usually play here. But thanks to StreamYard actually investing and upping their tech, we can actually stop it at various parts throughout the video. We got Natalie, we got Henry, we got Eric, we got Arthur joining us tonight. Big ups to all the folks in the audience, and everybody go follow Anthony on Twitter at Anthony M. Roberto. So let's get into this.
I understood that my job is to deliver for you, to make your lives more secure, create opportunity for you and your families, and tackle the global crises that are increasingly shaping your futures. I take this responsibility very seriously. And an important part of the job is speaking to you about what we're doing and why. Later today, President Biden will share what's called the Interim Strategic Guidance on our national security and foreign policy. It gives initial direction to our national security agencies so that they can get to work right away while we keep developing a more in-depth national security strategy over the next several months. The interim guidance lays out the global landscape as the Biden administration sees it, explains the priorities of our foreign policy, and specifically how we will renew America's strength to meet the challenges and seize the opportunities of our time. So for this, my first major speech as Secretary, I'm going to walk you through how American diplomacy will carry out the President's strategy. If we do our jobs right, you'll be able to check our work, to see the links between what we're doing around the world and the goals and values I'll lay out today. I know that foreign policy can sometimes feel disconnected from our daily lives. It's either all about major threats like pandemics, terrorism, or it fades from view. That's in part because it's often about people and events on the other side of the world. And it's about things you don't see, like crises stopped before they start, or negotiations that happen out of sight. But it's also because those of us who conduct foreign policy haven't always done a good job connecting it to the needs and aspirations of the American people.
Yeah, I just wanted to stop it there. I think that that it's clear that there's a problem, especially in internet discourse, especially where people act like foreign policy concerns really don't matter. You know, people say things like, why are we over there? While forgetting that those that have conducted terrorist attacks against their own country emanated from places halfway around the world, for example. But what are your thoughts on that, Anthony?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really important though, as far as foreign policy goes. You know, I mean, I want to say, I'm gonna say like ever since Vietnam, we haven't really been huge into foreign policy, really. I guess like maybe a little bit after 9/11, but it's only after like really crazy events we're like a little bit into foreign policy for like the average voter. And I think, you know, like when you talk to the average person in America, it's like, you know, like what are your top issues? Like they're all domestic, and like to an extent, like I can see that because obviously there's interpersonal, you know, things that actually happen that affect you a lot more than maybe in foreign policy.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's kind of strange that foreign policy a lot of the time is not even the top 10 issues. And for how big America is as a superpower, it's a little bit weird that for a lot of Americans, it's not like that. It's like, oh, like what's foreign policy? You know, like I remember when the Ukrainian incident happened, you know, they pulled a lot of Americans and they try to place, you know, a little pin where Ukraine is on the map. And most Americans don't even know where it is. You know, there's not even like basic
Yeah.
geography. And it's kind of sad in that in that way, to be honest, because it's like in a lot of ways, foreign policy doesn't really affect us as much anymore. So people kind of become more careless, and that also makes our decisions kind of poor too. You know, because like when we vote people in, no one really checks their foreign policy. You know, and that's kind of concerning because we
Mhm.
want sound foreign policy, and I think trying to bring it back to the table, I think, is a good thing. Um, I think in a weird way, recently foreign policy's been at least a little bit higher on the list, but it's really mostly pertains to climate change. So it's yeah, it's definitely a weird situation, and I really hope that changes. You know,
Yeah.
because when it comes to whether it be humanitarian wise, diplomatically, economically, or militarily, I think people need to at least have some broad education of like what's going on, you know, so we can make more informed decisions, I think, when we're
Yeah.
voting for people.
Yeah, no, absolutely. We got Henry joining us as well. I haven't sent out too many invites tonight because it's a bit of a longer video and I don't have that long to stream. I'm planning on going an hour tonight, but how's it going, Henry? Thanks for coming on. Oh, is Henry there? Okay.
Oh.
Okay. We'll continue with the video. Henry's mic might be muted. I'm not sure. Oh, right, his mic is muted right now. Oh well, we'll continue.
As a result, for some time now, Americans have been asking tough but fair questions about what we're doing, how we're leading, indeed, whether we should be leading at all.
Okay. Yeah, I was just saying thanks for coming on.
I had my mic muted. Yeah, thanks for having me, man. I'm not sure what all this is about. Just saw the link and wandered in, so.
Yeah, no, we're just reacting to Antony Blinken's first big foreign policy speech, where he's kind of outlining the general Biden doctrine on foreign policy. So,
nice.
Yeah, so he hasn't gotten any substantive stuff yet. So you're still in time for that. So. And we got Anthony Roberto here as well.
Mm-hmm. With this in mind, we've set the foreign policy priorities for the Biden administration by asking a few simple questions. What will our foreign policy mean for American workers and their families? What do we need to do around the world to make us stronger here at home? And what do we need to do at home to make us stronger in the world? The answers to these questions aren't the same as they were in 2017 or 2009. Yes, many of us serving in the Biden administration also proudly served President Obama, including President Biden. And we did a great deal of good work to restore America's leadership in the world, to achieve hard-won diplomatic breakthroughs, like the deal that stopped Iran from producing a nuclear weapon.
I knew that one was coming.
I know. See, I watched the speech beforehand, so I knew obviously, well, that one's going to be a bit of a big oofs right there. Yeah. That's the thing where like I look at that and I'm like, okay, Secretary Blinken is a very smart dude. He has to know. Like he has to know.
I think part of it's going along with it.
Yeah.
Part of it's going along with the
Democratic line. Like that was the one of the very few good things that Trump did on foreign policy was pulling out of that deal. And that's objective, regardless of what party you're on, right? Like
yeah, I'm hoping that it's just political rhetoric, hopefully. You know.
I mean, he didn't
it's
like
he didn't have to say it.
Yeah, it's like that was not a good one.
It's not a good one. Not a good one. I mean, I don't know. I mean,
I've said this before. I mean, Democrats are just not very good on Iran. It's very expected take.
No, I know it's expected. It's just you were saying before Henry came on how, he's a huge step up from Ben Rhodes, and I 100% agree with you. But it's still sad that even a massive step up from Ben Rhodes still isn't good enough on Iran.
Yeah.
So, but we can continue unless anybody else.
Let's hear him out.
And to bring the world together to tackle climate change. Our foreign policy fit the moment, as any good strategy should. But this is a different time, so our strategy and approach are different.
I hope so.
We're not simply picking up where we left off, as if the past 4 years didn't happen. We're looking at the world with fresh eyes. Having said that, while the times have changed, some principles are enduring. One is that American leadership and engagement matter. We're hearing this now from our friends. They're glad we're back. Whether we like it or not, the world does not organize itself.
That is true.
When the U.S. pulls back, one of two things is.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
That is true.
I mean, that's good rhetoric.
Well, see, and the thing is that like Trump pissed off a lot of allies. He even kind of pissed off countries like Saudi Arabia to an extent. So I think it's kind of good to have someone who's at least gives a better image, like for NATO and for everyone else around the world. So I think that puts us in a better spot diplomatically, at least.
Yeah, and his broader point seems to be that we're not pulling back, we're re-engaging.
Yeah, that is a good thing, because I do not like disengagement. That is not what I want to hear from people.
It's likely to happen. Either another country tries to take our place, but not in a way that advances our interests and values, or, maybe just as bad, no one steps up.
Yeah, that's exactly true.
Oh,
I think it's very clear. I think it's very clear that what people don't understand is when they say, "Oh, well, why should America be the world police?" If you're saying America shouldn't be, you are logically saying that Russia or China should be. And what I'll say is that what's even more dangerous than that probably is total multipolarity, because that's how you get World War I type situations happening. So,
well, see,
yeah.
what I like about this is and this is something I didn't like about Obama, about the whole leading from behind kind of thing. I kind of like with Blinken, it kind of shows that, like, okay, we're gonna take the stand on some of this stuff because no one else is gonna do it. We have to do this because no other country is gonna be able to do this.
Yeah,
So
we're the only ones that can.
yeah, because we have to recognize, like, if something happens, we at least have to try to do something, and I at least like to move to that position. So at least it puts us, at least it pins us to a better interventionist kind of stance, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, what were you saying, Henry?
Oh, all I said was we're the only ones that can do it. It was like, I was just agreeing with Anthony.
Okay, gotcha. So, yeah, let's continue the video.
And then we get chaos and all the dangers it creates. Either way, that's not good for America. Another enduring principle is that we need countries to cooperate, now more than ever. Not a single global challenge that affects your lives can be met by any one nation acting alone, not even one as powerful as the United States. And there is no wall high enough or strong enough to hold back the changes transforming our world. That's where the institution I'm privileged to lead comes in. It's the role of the State Department and America's diplomats and development workers to engage around the world and build that cooperation. President Biden has pledged to lead with diplomacy because it's the best way to deal with today's challenges. At the same time, we'll make sure that we continue to have the world's most powerful armed forces. Our ability to be effective diplomats depends in no small measure on the strength of our military. And in everything we do, we'll look not only to make progress on short-term problems, but also to address their root causes and lay the groundwork for our long-term strength. As the President says, to not only build back, but build back better. So here's our plan. First, we will stop COVID-19 and strengthen global health security.
Okay.
The pandemic has defined lives, our lives, for more than a
Blah,
year.
blah, blah,
To
pandemic.
beat it back, we need governments, scientists, businesses, and communities around the world working together. None of us will be fully safe until the majority of the world is immune, because as long as the virus is replicating, it could mutate into new strains that find their way back to America. So we need to work closely with partners to keep the global vaccination effort moving forward. At the same time, we need to make sure we learn the right lessons and make the right investments in global health security, including tools to predict, prevent, and stop pandemics, and a firm global commitment to share accurate and timely information so that a crisis like this never happens again. Second, we will turn around the economic crisis and build a more stable, inclusive global economy. The pandemic has caused unemployment to surge around the world. Nearly every country on earth is now in a recession. The pandemic also laid bare inequalities that have defined life for millions of Americans for a long time. So we've got a double challenge. To protect Americans from do that, we need to pass the right policies at home, like the relief package the President is
This
pushing
is a
hard for
foreign
right
policy
now,
speech?
while working to manage.
I know. That's one of the things is that people were complaining over on Twitter earlier that Biden bombed Syria before the checks went out. That became like a big meme. earlier.
That was pretty funny. I threw out some clown memes when that all happened.
Yeah, I saw some of that. That was
Well, if you want to see something hawk-pilled,
yeah.
just see what he said like 8 hours ago about Iran.
I did see that.
That was
I did see
that was pretty hawk-pilled.
Yeah, no, that'll be a separate video for sure. But this is his first big speech, so I want to go over this. But absolutely, we can talk about that after. But here we go.
The global economy, so it truly benefits the American people. And by that, I don't just mean a bigger GDP or a rising stock market. For many American households, those measures don't mean much. I mean good jobs, good incomes, and lower household costs for American workers and their families. We're building on hard lessons learned. Some of us previously argued for free trade agreements.
Uh-oh.
Well, I'm going to dip out.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not 100% sure why it stopped there, but
I'll probably watch this at some point. But
yeah. Well, thanks for coming on, and
thanks for having me, man.
See you,
Later.
Peace. Yeah, I'm just gonna try to get this working again.
Maybe you should clip it into smaller chunks next time, or I don't know if you could do that.
Yeah, no, fair enough.
Did it? Wait, well, what's the limit for StreamYard?
There is no limit anymore. There used to be 5 minutes. Yeah.
Sure, nothing. You don't have like an internet connection.
The internet was having an issue earlier, but the internet connection is stable now. I'm just gonna try removing it and trying that over again.
Okay, yeah. Just make sure you don't lose your spot.
Yeah. No, it's about 7 minutes in, so we'll try that again. Yeah, I'm just gonna find the. Yeah, I'll be one moment. Well, that's annoying. I'm not even sure where the file went anymore. I'm not sure how that even works. Yeah, that's annoying. I'll try it one more time.
Okay.
That my job is to deliver for you.
Okay, there we go.
Oh, there we go. Sweet.
As possible for free trade agreements because we believed America.
Yeah, and then of course it always has this moment. There we go.
Yeah,
those measures don't mean much.
Yeah, it's always stuttery for the first few seconds. Okay.
Yeah.
There we go.
I mean good jobs, good incomes, and lower household costs for American workers and their families. We're building on hard lessons learned. Some of us previously argued for free trade agreements because we believed Americans would broadly share in the economic gains that those deals would shape the global economy in ways that we wanted. We had good reasons to think those things, but we didn't do enough to understand who would be negatively affected and what would be needed to adequately offset their pain, or to enforce agreements that were already on the books and help more workers and small businesses fully benefit from them. Our approach now will be different.
Well, that's good.
Yeah, that's good.
I mean, he
said something about free trade there for a second.
Yeah, he did.
I know you're kind of against that. Do you find that kind of cringe, or?
Well, no. He was being critical of the way that free trade had been handled, where there wasn't an emphasis on holding parties to account. I see that as him kind of subtweeting China, because China screwed over everything.
I think, well, because I might be a little bit more free trade than you, but I know Biden's is a bit more protectionist,
Yes.
even more protectionist than Trump to an extent.
Oh yeah,
In certain ways. So I
Trump was
think,
more rhetorical about it, but Biden's
well,
actual
because
policy.
I think Biden even made it mandated that we had to have some of our vaccines made here or something like that, or he
Yeah.
forced the buy. He did the force to buy American or whatever. So
Yeah, he did. He did.
yeah,
That's correct. He actually did real policy in a way that Trump, by and large, didn't really do very much of. And I gotta say, on economics, I'm pretty impressed with Joe Biden, honestly. So
yeah, because he's definitely been more protectionist. Even on his campaign, he kind of was like that.
that's true.
So,
That's
so
true.
that would be an area I guess you would agree, kind of, at least
For the most part,
domestic.
yeah, for the most part. And I mean, you have Blinken here who's obviously acting in as the sort of chief on foreign policy of the State Department, and he's there basically calling out how free trade was handled with China, how people just kind of uh, didn't hold China to account to any actual
Yeah,
terms, and didn't do anything possible to offset the negative ramifications of doing free trade. Because even if I grant people that are pro free trade, even if I grant them that it makes both parties better off, what they forget is that it's not a straight up Pareto improvement, that you've got people that lose on both sides and you've got people that win on both sides. And even if it's true, and I'll hear this all the time from neoliberals where they'll say, well, if you impose such a tax or such a UBI or something in such a way that it can be arranged so that you take some of the benefits that the country gets to compensate those that lost, what would have been good jobs so that they're not worse off. I listen to that and I'm like, okay, but that never happened. So even if you could theoretically have it be a win-win for both sides, it's not a Pareto improvement. The only people that win out of it are big multinational corporations and the Communist Party. That's my main
so
criticism of it. So
I guess we could have free trade as like a separate thing, but I
yeah.
will say that when it comes to Trump, I think just slapping tariffs onto China was not good enough. Like you have to do a lot of more, like you have to do like a lot of other things. Like Japan did a lot of other things to get companies to move out of China, like as far as like factories and other plants go. And it's like I think just Trump just needed a better, broader strategy, other than just
Mhm.
like these, like, oh, okay, well, we're just gonna put a tariff on you. Like, yeah, that's good, but like, you need to do more than that. It's got to be more constructive and more of like, grand. You know what I mean?
No, I know what you're saying, and people would say that you should also pursue the TPP. And I think that I for example, I support doing more free trade type stuff with India, and I support obviously free trade with democratic allies and everything. But I would say one of the key things is making it illegal to have essential stuff manufactured outside your own borders. So in that sense, I'm a pretty sort of more protectionist sort of person, but I'm not against free trade with democracies that have human rights. So,
Mm-hmm. All right.
but
Yeah.
yeah, we can continue.
Yeah.
We will fight for every American job and for the rights, protections, and interests of all American workers. We will use every tool to stop countries from stealing our intellectual property or manipulating their currencies to get an unfair advantage.
Yeah, so he's talking about China again. Like a lot of this part here is just basically like he's talking about China for the most part.
Yeah. I'm kind of glad that at least both parties in America are at least a little bit more anti-China now than they were 10 years ago. So
Yeah.
that's at least good to see. Cough, cough, Canada. But yeah,
Yeah, Canada. Oh man, dude, I know I have to deal with that every day, man. Oh my
don't
God,
worry.
dude.
Well, we will fix it, guys. We'll throw in like a Tony Blair over there or something. We'll
Yeah,
make it
somebody
good.
should probably do something about Trudeau. It's like that meme.
Hey, man.
Oh man.
Yeah.
I mean, seriously, I mean, like there should at least be some sort of norm in the parliamentary system here. When you say that you admire China's basic dictatorship, at that point you just have to resign. That shouldn't be something that you could just survive as a political scandal. It wasn't even really a scandal for him. You had a lot of people in the Liberal Party that were saying, like, yeah, like They have solar panels and higher GDP, man. It's
Well,
like,
I find
okay.
it funny because Australia, America, and the UK banned the Chinese 5G networks, but Canada has not done that yet.
Oh, of course
Yep.
not, because Trudeau wants that cushy Huawei 5G stuff. It's
It's just
no, dude, it's so sad. He's actually the weakest link. I mean, technically Erdogan and Orban are the weakest links, but like Canada's probably third in the sort of NATO.
so
After
much
that.
potential. So much
I
potential.
know, dude. It sucks, dude. Oh, God,
Anyways,
no.
I'm sorry. Every time
Yeah.
I think of China, I think of Canada now.
Dude, yeah, I know. It's embarrassing, but it's true. So we can continue.
Yeah.
We will fight corruption, which stacks the deck against us. And our trade policies will need to answer very clearly how they will grow the American middle class, create new and better jobs, and benefit all Americans, not only those for whom the economy is already working. Third, we will renew democracy because it's under threat. A new report from the independent watchdog group Freedom House is sobering. Authoritarianism and nationalism are on the rise around the world. Governments are becoming less transparent and have lost the trust of the people. Elections are increasingly flashpoints for violence. Corruption is growing, and the pandemic has accelerated many of these trends. But the erosion of democracy is not only happening in other places. It's also happening here in the United States. Disinformation is rampant here. Structural racism and inequality make life worse for millions. Our elected leaders were targeted in the violent siege of the Capitol just 2 months ago. And more broadly, Americans are increasingly polarized, and the institutions that exist to help us manage our differences so our democracy can continue to function are under strain. Shoring up our democracy is a foreign policy imperative. Otherwise, we play right into the hands of adversaries and competitors like Russia and China, who seize every opportunity to sow doubts about the strength of our democracy.
Yeah, no. This is the hawk killed moment.
Oh shit! Here we come.
No. He's right
man.
straight up. The second he mentions disinformation, I'm immediately thinking of the Kremlin and Kremlin Kyle, and Jimmy Dore and all those guys.
Oh shit!
Yeah.
Because I think of people like Ryan Knight who call him World War III Biden.
World War III Biden. Wait, who's Ryan Knight again? Wait, is that the dude who does the anti-neocon thing?
No. Ryan Knight is a socialist who's like
that dude. Okay, there was a different Ryan that people were like, "Oh, you should debate this dude." And I'm like, I look at his channel. He's got like 90,000 subs, and his channel, like the cover picture is just like, it's like anti-neocon alert or whatever, like all this.
Oh no, Ryan Knight is too, but he's like a dipshit socialist who just complains about Biden all the time. Yeah,
no, this guy's like a Nick Fuentes type dude, so it's like,
dude,
I know
they piss off the far left, they piss off the far right. This is a good time.
I know, dude, I know. So yeah, no, overall with the speech so far, I actually think the speech is mostly good. Like without that Iran stuff, this would be basically, for the most part, perfect. So we can continue though. So
we shouldn't be making their jobs easier. I take heart from the fact that we're dealing with our struggles out in the open, and that sets us apart from many other countries. We don't ignore our failures and shortcomings or try to sweep them under the rug and pretend they don't exist. We confront them for the world to see. It's painful, sometimes it's ugly, but it's how we make progress. Still, there's no question that our democracy is fragile. People around the world have seen that. Many recognize in our challenges the challenges that they're facing. And now they're watching us because they want to see whether our democracy is resilient, whether we can rise to the challenge here at home. That will be the foundation for our legitimacy in defending democracy around the world for years to come. Why does that matter? Because strong democracies are more stable, more open, better partners to us, more committed to human rights, less prone to conflict, and more dependable markets for our goods and services. When democracies are weak, governments can't deliver for their people, or a country becomes so polarized that it's hard for anything to get done, they become more vulnerable to extremist movements from the inside and to interference from the outside, and they become less reliable partners for the United States. None of that is in our national interest. The more we and other democracies can show the world that we can deliver, not only for our people, but also for each other, the more we can refute the lie that authoritarian countries love to tell, that theirs is the better way to meet people's fundamental needs and hopes.
Yeah, I just want to say, imagine thinking that an authoritarian system like Russia or China can deliver for anybody but the party or the oligarchs.
I feel like this is a subtweet of Kyle Kalinske because he thinks that these authoritarian states are stable, they're open. I mean, I think this just kind of calls him out.
You see, I was more thinking he was going after like the Jimmy Dore crowd and stuff like that. But you're right; he might also be going after like the Justice Democrat type people, that kind of thing. Because it almost sounds like he's going after the tankies there. But you're totally right; he's not going to waste time addressing the tankies. He's talking about people that are more respected in his party. And I mean, Kyle's got almost 1 million subscribers, right? So, oh man. I can't wait to see Kyle make a stupid video about this tomorrow, talking about how Antony Blinken is a total imperialist. Because you see, he said straight up, strong democracies are better trading partners. Imperialism.
Yep.
He mentioned
he probably thinks Tony Blinken is a neocon, even though he isn't. Or I don't know if he said that. He probably thinks that though.
He definitely would say that this was a neocon speech, that this was written to him by the neocon ghouls
too far right
in Biden administration. Well, the thing is, for Kyle, Kyle doesn't know what a neocon is. I don't think, like, Kyle defines. Here's the thing about Kyle that people don't really understand, which is that whenever you listen to him, like, unless you've watched a few Kyle videos, this would sound so like that has to be fake. How can he be that dumb? That's his job. But no, he describes interventionism as right wing. He says straight up, that's a right wing argument that we need to intervene. All this kind of stuff. He doesn't think it's possible to be left wing and interventionist. He believes that the left wing position is anti-war and the right wing position is pro-war, which is hilarious because by that definition, and Patrick Buchanan is a left winger. So
I'm just gonna say last week was just amazing. Is all I'm gonna say.
Yes, absolutely. And
I have a special meme for that. With the pink Wojaks. I think I've said it before, but
yes,
that sums up everything from last week.
Oh man, if you send that to me right now on Twitter, I will put that up on the screen for
people. Oh yeah, I'll get it if you want to play the video.
Yeah, I'll play the video.
It's on us to prove them wrong. So the question isn't if we will support democracy around the world, but how. We will use the power of our example. We will encourage others to make key reforms, overturn bad laws, fight corruption, and stop unjust practices. We will incentivize democratic behavior, but we will not promote democracy through costly military interventions or by attempting to overthrow authoritarian regimes by force.
Cringe. I just got to say that right off the bat. Yeah. That was one of the highlights from the Financial Times. They said, Biden foreign policy doctrine, the United States will not do regime change by force or try to spread democracy. And I'm listening to this. I'm like, so all that rhetoric in the first part of the speech is all great and everything. But then you hear it and you're like, oh, wait, what? So democracy is good. Strong democracies are better.
See,
and yet,
the thing is,
but that costs money, man. It would cost money to bring more democracies into the world. I can't see. This is why Dylan Meisner is wrong. When Dylan Meisner says that the neocons are over and that a muscular foreign policy is with the liberal internationalists, he's dead wrong. What we need is a neoconservative renaissance. So,
yeah, I'm just and that's the thing where it's like liberal internationalism is like okay to an extent. Like I sort of identify that. I don't really label myself anymore, but it's okay to an extent, and I totally get that. The thing is with Blinken is that it's like it's just sometimes he comes off more hawkish, sometimes he comes off really dovish.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to have your spirits lifted, I can link you what he said from the Pentagon or whatever, or I'm sorry, from the reporters earlier, what he said about Iran. about
Yeah.
striking back. That was pretty hawk-pilled. So he does post some good hawk pills every now and again. He does dish them out every now and again.
No. You're right about that. It's just, again, this is almost like the left wing side of John Bolton, where it's like, I really like John Bolton. John Bolton's really hawk-pilled, but if you ask him, what does he think about the idea of spreading democracy? He'll say it's not the U.S. job to spread democracy in the world. He's only really hawk-pilled for national security reasons. Or in the case of Blinken here, it's not even so much that he's not a humanitarian per se. It's that because you're right, like he supported Kosovo, all that kind of stuff. It's just that it's that he's bought into this meme that, well, the days of doing regime change wars are over because some Trump people and some Kyle people said that that's what neocon ghouls do. And I'm like, dude, like, so all that line about strong democracies and everything, what, that's just for white Westerners, basically, and a few lucky people in Asia, like on the island?
It's I know.
Man.
I know.
Like, you have to be better than that. I mean, because all the rhetoric is good, but if you're not going to back it up by an actual, here's the thing, even if they weren't going to do a regime change war, I don't think they were. At least don't say you've given up on the idea of spreading democracy. At least, like, because all those pretensions in the beginning of the speech then go away if you say, but I'm not going to fight for any of that. If you didn't add this part in, then you'd say, oh, like, maybe they do want to bring democracy to Iran. But no, he said straight up there he doesn't care about spreading democracy to Iran. So
yeah, it's definitely one of those things where it's like, I feel like part of it is him personally, but I think the other part of it is also kowtowing to the Democratic Party a bit, to an extent of like, hey, like, I'm with these Obama people and whatnot. I kind of have to toe the line a little bit. And again, I'm not saying he isn't genuine. I'm just saying to an extent he is towing the line the Democratic Party. So that kind of, you know what I mean? Like, that kind of sucks too. So
yeah, I know.
Again,
a big part of it. Yeah, a big part of this does reflect on Joe Biden because that's his boss. So
yeah, and that's the other thing I was going to say though, that it's like, if he says something that's out of line, he wants to keep his post. He's gonna have to say what needs to be said. Bottom line.
Yeah, it's the same as when Pompeo would say things he knew were dumb to appease Trump.
Oh,
right?
he said some stupid stuff about North Korea, but again, does it mean he believes it? Not necessarily. Maybe not. But the big thing is you have to represent who your boss is, and that's what he's doing. Just like Pompeo did to Trump, this is what Blinken's doing to Biden. You have to represent who you're speaking to, right? So you can't. I mean, like, you don't want to get fired, right? So like, yeah.
No, that's true. That's true. I do want to go to Arthur, and then we'll go to your meme. So Arthur says here, quote, democracy is good, but we'll just send thoughts and prayers for it to spread, basically. That's exactly the vibe. So and then we'll go to Anthony's meme. This was Kyle and Jimmy and Abby and the Shoe on Head, all those people, Vosh, etc., when Biden attacked the Iranian militias in Syria. That's them right there, just fuming and dooming. So, I mean, my favorite one is the one in the middle where he's like waking up just because he was dreaming about Biden. He was having a nightmare and then he wakes up. That's my favorite. That's my favorite out of all of these.
Well, no, he wakes up because he realized on Press TV News that his favorite militia just got bombed.
Yes. No, how dare you kill my favorite terrorist, man? No.
I like the one where
he's strangling Pepe.
Yeah, that one's actually my favorite. That one's my favorite.
This is so good. This is so good. And then that's actually a selfie of Kyle Kulinski in the top center there with the microphone. That's like
yeah, that was great.
It's actually the studio. He changed it from green to red. Okay.
Sorry,
yeah.
I just wanted to show that one because I thought it was at least relevant, and I love it. It's great, and I'd love to drop it on all the losers.
Oh yeah, the haters and traitors. So we can move on with the speech. So
we've tried these tactics in the past. However well-intentioned, they haven't worked.
Wrong. He's wrong about that. Regime change has worked before. It goes back, literally decades. I mean, obviously, the ones that people go to would be Germany and Japan as like prime examples of authoritarian states, turning into democracies. But you could also look at, for example, Iraq. You could look at what's another example?
Paraguay,
Oh, yeah,
Uruguay.
yeah. You could look at
Let's what
um,
else?
well, the United States intervened additionally. Why am I running blank here right now? Oh, the U.S. Intervened to protect South Korea.
We went into Haiti.
Yeah.
What else? We went into Kosovo. We went
Oh, yeah,
into
that's right. Kosovo. That's right. Bosnia and Herzegovina.
yeah. They're better. They're a lot better now.
Yeah, no, I've talked to people from Bosnia and Herzegovina that like they're straight up hawk pill, like they're fans of the meme page and stuff. And like realistically speaking, a ton of the fans of my meme page are not from the United States. They're from countries that the United States.
It's actually kind of funny because like Serbia was so bad to the point that even Bernie Sanders was against.
That's
true. It was so bad
that he was for the intervention.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, like he was so bad. It was like, oh yeah, like Sloboda is actually like really shitty. Like that. Yeah. Like that's how like when Bernie Sanders calls you out, you have to be really shitty at that point.
That's right. That's right. No, I want to go to something that Eric said. He said Bush ran an anti-interventionist ticket, so don't count out regime change shenanigans.
That is true.
It's true. But Bush rose to the occasion of 9/11. Hopefully, there's not going to be in like a 9/11 type situation that happens under Biden that would turn him.
Well, also, like the past like 30 years or so, like a lot of candidates run more anti-interventionists, and then you see if they're interventionists when they're actually further into their presidency, if that makes sense. I'm not justifying it, like I'm not saying that's a good thing. I'm just saying that that's what happens a lot of the time,
Yeah.
Because even H. Bush was a little bit more like cautious, and then we found out he's a little bit more hawkish to an extent. So you never know. You never know.
Yeah. We can continue.
Given democracy promotion a bad name, and they've lost the confidence of the American people. We'll do things differently. Fourth, we will work to create a humane and effective immigration system. Strong borders are fundamental to our national security, and laws are the bedrock of our democracy. But we also need a diplomatic and just plain decent solution to the fact that year after year, people from other countries risk everything to try to make it here. We need to address the root causes that drive so many people to flee their homes. And so we'll work closely with other countries, especially our neighbors in Central America, to help them deliver better physical security and economic opportunity, so people don't feel like migrating is the only way out and up. As we do this work, we will not lose sight of our core principles. Cruelty, especially to children, is unacceptable. And turning our backs on some of the most vulnerable people on earth is not who we should ever be. One of the most important pieces of our national identity is that we are a country of immigrants. We're made stronger by the fact that hardworking people come here to go to school, start businesses, enrich our communities. We've gotten away from that part of ourselves in the past few years. We've got to get back to it. Fifth, we will revitalize our ties with our allies and partners. Our alliances are what the military calls force multipliers. They're our unique asset. We get so much more done with them than we could without them. So we're making a big push right now to reconnect with our friends and allies and to reinvent partnerships that were built years ago so they're suited to today's and tomorrow's challenges. That includes countries in Europe and Asia that have been our closest friends for decades, as well as old and new partners in Africa, the Middle East, and Latin America. Over the decades, these commitments have created new markets for our products, new allies to deter aggression, and new partners to help meet global challenges. We had a name for it: enlightened self-interest. We'll be clear that real partnership means carrying burdens together, everyone doing their part, not just us. And whenever we can, we will choose engagement. Wherever the rules for international security and the global economy are being written, America will be there, and the interests of the American people will be front and center. We're always better off at the table, not outside the room. You should expect nothing less from your government. Sixth, we will tackle the climate crisis and drive a green energy revolution. Maybe you live in California, where wildfires get worse every year, or the Midwest, where farmland keeps flooding, or the Southeast, where communities have been destroyed by stronger and more frequent storms. The climate crisis is endangering all of us and costing us more by the month. We can't fix it alone. The United States produces 15% of the world's carbon pollution. That's a lot, and we badly need to get that number down. But even if we brought it down to zero, we wouldn't solve the crisis, because the rest of the world is producing the other 85%. This is the definition of a problem we need to work together as a community of nations to solve. And we can't settle for only doing the bare minimum. We have to challenge ourselves and each other to do more. While we do, we must also position the United States to thrive and lead in the growing global market for renewable energy. Wind and solar are the cheapest sources of electricity generation in the world today. They're not the industries of the future anymore. The future is now. And other countries are ahead of us. We need to turn that around and create millions of good-paying jobs for Americans in renewables. Seventh, we will secure our leadership in technology. A global technology revolution is now underway. The world's leading powers are racing to develop and deploy new technologies, like artificial intelligence and quantum computing, that could shape everything about our lives, from where we get energy, to how we do our jobs, to how wars are fought. We want America to maintain our scientific and technological edge, because it's critical to us thriving in the 21st century economy. But we know that new technologies aren't automatically beneficial, and those who use them don't always have good intentions. We need to make sure technologies protect your privacy, make the world safer and healthier, and make democracies more resilient. That's where American diplomacy comes in. We're going to bring our friends and partners together to shape behavior around emerging technologies and establish guardrails against misuse. At the same time, we must strengthen our tech defenses and deterrence. We need only look at SolarWinds, the major hack of U.S. government networks last year, to see how determined our adversaries are to use technology to undermine us.
Yeah, I'll just say on that one, that's something that Kanzik Supreme talks about, because he's got a new YouTube channel out and he's been on the show many times, a big supporter of this channel. His main issue is cybersecurity, and he often will drive home the point that, you know, the media doesn't really talk about that very often, but that the SolarWinds hack was a huge boon to Russian interests. And
Yeah, and actually, one thing I found that was so damaging about Trump was we didn't do any sanctions, and then he blamed it on China, and it's like, what the hell are you doing, dude? And I think like one area, I guess, from the Obama Biden kind of administration from the passes was they did create the cyber force back in 2009 or 10 I believe. So that was kind of good. So as far as like cybersecurity goes and making sure we can offset threats from Iran, North Korea, China, and Russia that try to hack into our systems, whether it be for banking or for other things. It's very, very important that we have a strong infrastructure, because we don't want to be losing information to the Chinese, North Koreans, or to these other scumbags. Like these people are awful. Like we can't give them anything. We like nothing. And I think it's very important that we, maintain that, and making sure that, again, like hacks like this cannot happen again. Like this is very, very critical to our infrastructure. Like they don't even necessarily even have to have spies over here. They can do it from computers in Moscow.
that's right.
So I think it's very good that we're trying to be a bit more vigilant, though. Although it's for both parties though too. It's just Trump was more of like just weird about it though. But generally speaking, like both parties are pretty big into cybersecurity.
Yeah.
That's always just a good front that will never really be politicized this much. So that's always good.
Yeah, I mean, I've always made the point that I don't think that security should be a political issue. I mean, the fact that that it's politicized to the extent that it is today is just a victory for your enemies, basically. I mean, it should be something that Republicans and Democrats just both take as given, like that the sky is blue. That yeah, you counter Iran, you counter Russia, you counter China, you counter North Korea, that kind of stuff. But
I mean,
yeah.
I was just saying in the cyberspace, generally speaking, both Democrats and Republicans do agree on that.
Yeah, and that's
It was
true.
just Trump had a weird position when it came to the solar. That was really weird, but generally, like, everyone's on board and everyone knows that
Yeah.
Russia did it.
Well, and see, that's why Trump kind of had a weird sort of position about this kind of stuff. That's the problem, is that it's probably better that you have a president that doesn't owe money to one of your chief adversaries. So we can move on though. So
Today, safeguarding our national security means investing in our technological capabilities and elevating this issue in our diplomacy and our defense. We will do both. And eighth, we will manage the biggest geopolitical test of the 21st century, our relationship with China. Several countries present us with serious challenges, including Russia, Iran, North Korea. And there are serious crises we have to deal with, including in Yemen, Ethiopia, and Burma. But the challenge posed by China is different. China is the only country with the economic, diplomatic, military, and technological power to seriously challenge the stable and open international system. All the rules, values, and relationships.
So actually, I disagree. I disagree with his assessment so far right now. I think in terms of immediate threats, the other three are actually way more of a problem. I think if you wait on Iran, they're going to get nukes. I think if you wait on North Korea, they're going to get thermonuclear bombs and be at a point where they can blackmail America. And on Russia, I think that Russia's in such a point of crisis that they're going to make some drastically dangerous moves to try to gain ground before they have demographic demise.
So
yeah.
I guess for me, like, what's a little bit different is, like, obviously North Korea, Iran, and Russia, or I guess the more forefront, like, in your face kind of threats. But I think in a way prioritizing China more is a good thing. Because we talked about this before, like with in your previous episode with like the ballistic missiles. I think China is very much becoming a bigger threat to our navy, and I think it's very important that we take them more seriously. And it's one of those things where it's like we've never been tough on them up until Trump, and it's like we have to continue that, and we have to make sure they're on the forefront, of our foreign policy, because we've kind of always left them in the background of like, yeah, they're kind of bad, but they're not really a thing to us. And it's like I think it's very important that we take them seriously now because they could be way bigger of a threat 50 years down the road. Much bigger than North Korea. Especially with some of their cyber capabilities and everything else with their navy. I think that's a definite problem to the United States. And as far as our commerce goes, because like I don't want their navy to be as big as ours. Like that's not a good thing. So I think I'm gonna have to disagree with you a little bit, and I'm just gonna have to say that like I think China should be a bigger priority to some extent, on all fronts.
Yeah, I guess we could continue that conversation on a different stream.
Mhm.
So let's continue with the video. Uh-oh. Oh, come on, get it together, StreamYard.
Oh,
To seriously challenge the stable and
Okay.
open international system. All the rules, values, and relationships that make the world work the way we want it to, because it ultimately serves the interests and reflects the values of the American people. Our relationship with China will be competitive when it should be, collaborative when it can be, and adversarial when it must be. The common denominator is the need to engage China from a position of strength. That requires working with allies and partners, not denigrating them, because our combined weight is much harder for China to ignore. It requires engaging in diplomacy and in international organizations, because where we've pulled back, China has filled in. It requires standing up for our values when human rights are abused in Xinjiang or when democracy is trampled in Hong Kong, because if we don't, China will act with even greater impunity.
Oh man.
And it means
Yeah, StreamYard's having a normal one
Ah,
right
damn it! It was just getting a little bit more hawk-billed there.
now.
He was dishing out a few good takes there.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, the thing is, Justin Trudeau, on the other hand, would abstain on that. He'd say genocide. What genocide? Yeah, you don't see a genocide.
Didn't he well actually I think I read something somewhere that um Justin Trudeau didn't want to call it a genocide yet because it was hostages in China or something that they were trying to negotiate with.
That's
I
a
don't I
cope. That's a cope. His entire party voted to label it a genocide, to condemn it as a genocide. All that happened, every party recognized it, except him and his cabinet abstained.
uh-oh.
No. I mean, he can say he doesn't want to endanger the lives of Canadians there. No, the fact of the matter is he wants Chinese state corporation contracts, and he doesn't want to do anything about China. He said he admires their basic dictatorship. I mean, we don't need to continue, but like
Yeah.
it's night and day between Joe Biden and Justin Trudeau, because Biden's somebody who straight up says like, look, there's a security threat. They're an economic nightmare. They need to be dealt with. They need to be countered. And then Trudeau says, why can't we be friends? It's embarrassing.
I know, and then he invited them over to get training from the Canadian Armed Forces. That was so cringe.
I know, man. And it was so bad that some of the liberal type propagandists in Canada tried to dismiss it as basically fake, I was seeing on Twitter. And it's like, okay, except the Ministry of Defense came out and said, yes, it was planned, and no, it's not happening because that's stupid. And they're like, I mean, he wants to be buddies with Xi Jinping. It's
Oh man.
basically like imagine Trump, but
So he's basically
with maple syrup.
he's
So,
basically Jimmy Carter.
basically Jimmy Carter. He's basically Trump, but yeah, he's more like a Canadian Jimmy Carter, I guess, because I guess he's like left of center. But yeah. I think of like Trudeau and Trump is like super similar in a lot of ways. They both wanted to eat the chocolate cake. They both admired the basic dictatorship, all that kind of stuff. Like, I mean, it's funny because a lot of the Trump fans, they'll like call Trudeau weak and all this kind of stuff and everything. Yet I always saw Trudeau and Trump as very similar dudes. So, when it came to foreign policy, but yeah, we can continue with the video.
is investing in American workers, companies, and technologies, and insisting on a level playing field, because when we do, we can outcompete anyone. These are the 8 top foreign policy priorities of the Biden administration. You may notice some things about that list.
Yeah, I'm just gonna say, StreamYard, like, come on, it's 2021, get it together.
Exactly.
First, important items are not on it. That doesn't mean they don't matter to us or that we won't work hard on them. Indeed, I look forward to setting out what we'll do on other vital pieces of our foreign policy in the days and weeks ahead. But these priorities, the ones I've talked about today, are the most urgent, the ones on which we must make swift and sustained progress. They're also all simultaneously domestic and foreign issues, and we've got to approach them that way, or we'll fall short. Beating COVID means vaccinating people at home and abroad. Winning in the global economy means making the right investments at home and pushing back against unfair trading practices by China and others. Dealing with climate change means investing in resilience and green energy here at home and leading a global effort to reduce carbon pollution. More than at any other time in my career, maybe in my lifetime, distinctions between domestic and foreign policy have simply fallen away. Our domestic renewal and our strength in the world are completely entwined, and how we work will reflect that reality. And finally, as the President has promised, diplomacy, not military action, will always come first. Again, this is shaped by hard lessons learned. Americans are rightly wary of prolonged U.S. military interventions abroad. We've seen how they've often come at far too high a cost, both to us and to others. When we look back at the past decades of our military involvement in the world, especially in Afghanistan and the Middle East, we must remember what we've learned about the limits of force to build a durable peace, that the day after a major military intervention is always
The limits of force. The problem is they didn't stay the course with the surge. The surge worked. Yeah, Round and Browns is cringe. What are your thoughts on that, Anthony?
So I think the China stuff was pretty good. So,
Yeah.
pushing back on unfair trade deals, I think is a good thing, because, China obviously in certain ways has the upper hand when it comes to trade. And I
Yep.
think for America, we have to do what we can to, push back against that, when it comes to trade. So I think on that end, it's good. I think the environment stuff is like, okay. I mean, I think when it comes to like the whole, like, I guess like, like, how do I put it? Like when it comes to like green energy, what he talks about, I think some of that is good because it's like if we have like a lot of businesses that do innovation here in America, and we could spread that everywhere, I think that's a good thing. Because we always want to be the leader in the technological field, as far as green energy goes, and I think that's important. I think it's also just important to just to be the leader of innovation in general. When it comes to America, so yeah, I think it's generally okay.
Yeah, I will say this on China, even though I would regard the other countries as more immediate and pressing concerns, I'd prefer Biden be tough on China than not tough on China like Trudeau, because it could get a hell of a lot worse.
Well,
And I always find it funny when people make Biden out to be like this sort of like far left guy, like Beijing Biden and everything. I'm like, okay, but look at Trudeau. Like it's not even
yeah.
close. It's not even close. Like because compared to Trudeau, Biden looks like John Bolton. You know?
Oh yeah, it's pretty well, yeah, it's pretty insane. The other thing I would say is, well, I don't know if you'll have a
Mm.
video on that on some point, but I know the Quad dialogue. I've been talking about
Oh
this a
yes,
lot.
yes.
Biden wants to get that going as like an actual alliance.
Yeah, no, that'd
Um,
be base because that
yeah,
actually includes India. So
yeah. Also,
and I've
other
been
countries could join this. I haven't heard anything from Canada yet.
You probably won't. You probably won't because
Because
if
even France and Britain are like, well,
yeah,
maybe we might join this, and even
but
Taiwan. Well, maybe I don't know
here's
yet,
the
but
thing.
they've hinted.
Here's the thing, Anthony. If Canada under Trudeau is joining any Quad dialogue, it's going to be a dialogue with ISIS, China, North Korea, and Canada. That's what it's going to be. That's what
Oh
it's going to be.
man.
No,
Oh
no, no,
yeah,
no,
yeah.
no.
That's
I know. Like you could look at it how he's treated ISIS with the shirts and everything, or the coats. It's like, dude, it's weakness on top of weakness. But there is a comment from Comrade Nixon here. He says, "Green energy, go nuclear, noobs." And yeah, I think I actually consider nuclear energy to be green energy, but that's considered controversial because people are like, no, it's not technically renewable. It's like, yeah, well, for all intents and purposes.
honestly, I mean, I think it's fine as long as we're the leader of it, and as long as we're the captains of industry behind it. Because I want America to be leading in innovation and all this kind of stuff. So I think it's fine. And again, I think for America, we have to be on top of all different sectors of the economy. Like
Yeah,
I
no,
I don't want China to be leading in green energy. I want America to do that.
yeah, I'll say this to Comrade Nixon here. He says China Joe sounds like Russiagate, but upside down. The only different, well, no, except Russiagate was true and Beijing Biden is fake news. So,
Yeah, it's
I mean, what part of this is Beijing Biden? Like, if he's Beijing Biden, wouldn't he be looking to do more free trade shit with China? Like,
yeah, he's
Biden's
come off.
actually protectionist. He's more protectionist than Trump. So,
Well, also the other thing is something he mentioned earlier. I think it was like 2 or 3 minutes ago. He did say that like he's gonna try to work with work with other countries, to make sure we bring them to our side more. Because I don't know if you know this though, but Japan and South Korea hate each other right now, and I think actually getting them to have amends and come together and making sure our allies within the region are unified against China, I think that's very, very important.
mm,
And I know
yeah.
Trump didn't do very much. I know he was pro Taiwan, but he didn't put the puzzle. He didn't put all the pieces of the puzzle together to get them to be anti-China. If Biden, for some reason, hopefully again, I don't know if this will actually happen, but if somehow we can link up our allies in the Pacific to have a block against China, that'd be pretty good. Like that's the thing, it's actually getting an alliance against China, because this is like a new Cold War. We have to, in a way, we have to think about it. And it's like, I want these countries to be on our side and anti-China. And I think it's very important, that for Tony Blinken to say that.
No, you'll have some people out there that say, "Oh, that's fear mongering and stuff," and it's like those are people who in 1947 would have said, "Wait, why can't we be friends with the Soviet Union? We were allies against Hitler." Like you'll have people say, "Oh, well, we helped China against the Soviets." It's like, and the Soviets are gone. So
there's actually a guy in your chat that says Trump was more pro Beijing. It's like that's kind of true. He went to the 70th anniversary of the Communist Party. He literally had chocolate cake there.
Yeah, he said he had beautiful. He didn't just have chocolate cake. He had beautiful chocolate cake.
He celebrated
not average, not mediocre. He said beautiful. Beautiful.
Think about this. He went there to celebrate 70 years of communism.
And yet his supporters, they'll talk a tough game about communism on college campuses. When it comes to actually shilling for real communism, though, in the real world, they're totally down to send for North Korea, and they're totally down to make jokes about how Trump should make himself president for life. Like, okay, so I was watching The Bulwark. There was a show on earlier today with Bill Kristol and Mona Charen, and they were talking about how 70% of the pro-Trump Republican wing think that Trump deserves more than 2 terms as president. So it's not even really a joke for them. They're straight up like, yes, make him the God Emperor, make him the party secretary general, make him president for life. Straight up 70% of the pro-Trump wing of the Republican Party. That's like pathetic.
Yeah, and
then they get triggered if you call them fascists too. So
it's like, it's so like, because again, I'm not saying most Republicans are like this or anything, but it's like, how are you so bad that you go over there to celebrate their victory?
I know, a communist party too. Like that's what's so embarrassing about it, is because like at least with his supporters and stuff, you'd think that they'd be pissed off about it. Now, some of them, if he went to celebrate a fascist 70th anniversary, you could see why they still might support it. But a communist one, like, dude, see, that's where it comes into the whole horseshoe theory thing. Because when I've talked to these people, I'll point out all this stuff about them and everything, but they'll say, yeah, well, they're communists, but they're traditional. And so they're actually right-wing communists. And I'm like, oh, so you guys are Nazbol gang. Like, that's the thing. Like, the Nazbol gang, I've had people try to tell me that the Nazbol gang is a meme. I debated these people. They're not a meme. They're 100% dead serious. They're actual Nazbols.
It's actually funny because I know a couple of weeks ago I was with my friends on a Discord, and we were talking about, I guess, like Nazbol parties. There's actually a Nazbol party in China right now that started up a couple of years ago. So they're fascist and they're also communist at the same time.
Why not both? Why not both?
Yeah, basically, it's a Han supremacist.
What if I want my cake and I want to eat it too? What if I want my Red Army outfit uniform, but I also want a brown shirt? How about that? Why not both?
It's actually kind of funny because I've always said this: like, communists and fascists are actually very similar. Like,
yes,
they will blend together very easily.
Yeah, what's the difference? One has a red and gold flag. One has a red and black flag. That's basically it. So we can continue. So.
Oh, yeah, sorry. I just want to make that point because I just, that was so embarrassing.
No, I know. It's super cringe. Anyway, we've only about 5 minutes left on this. So
harder than we imagine, and how critical it is to pursue every possible avenue to a diplomatic solution. Of course, we will never hesitate to use force when American lives and vital interests are at stake. That's why President Biden authorized an airstrike last week against Iranian-backed militia groups targeting U.S. and coalition forces in Iraq. But in that case, and in future cases when we must take military action, we will do so only when the objectives and mission are clear and achievable, consistent with our values and laws, and with the informed consent of the American people. And we'll do it.
Wait, this is pretty potent. Nicholas says, haha, Anthony said Han supremacist, and I was just looking at some Star Wars memes.
I mean, but it's true though. Look, if you look it up, there is such a thing though. Like, I know
Oh, yeah.
Kevin has talked about this before. Like, a lot, like there's some Han Chinese people that are really racist.
Oh, the whole party is chauvinist. They believe that they're like the master race, basically, that they should control China in entirety, and that all other ethnic groups in China should bow down to the Han Chinese, and that the Communist Party of it's like the idea of what Stalin had with the great Russian people. Of course, that was goofy because he was Georgian, but there's that aestheticization of hegemonic Han supremacy.
It's also kind of crazy because it's like there's a reason why there isn't many ethnic minorities left in China, and like they're heavily controlled and whatnot, and they're segregated off in society because it's like there is like a lot of racism in China. Like people don't talk about that. Like, and if you go on to Henry, I think it's on Henry's channel, and I know on this channel you guys have talked about how China is racist. So
oh yeah, big
it's
time.
definitely there.
Serpensa talks about that a lot, and some people were trying to say, oh, but that guy's like a Western imperialist and all this stuff. It's like that dude lived in China. He might still live in China. I haven't kept up with him in a while, but that guy would always like be frank in his videos, like straight up say, like, look, if you're black, don't try dating here, basically. Like he'll say this kind of stuff, and he's white, and people called him racist, and he's like, look, I'm not racist. I'm just telling you this is the culture over here, and it's super racist. And he's like, I don't like it, basically.
Yeah,
So,
it's pretty crazy because it's like, I mean, like if you want to, if some people don't believe me, you can look up news stories of African migrants in China and see how they're treated. It's in some cases it's pretty bad. It's not just like, oh, like they're like a little racist here and there. Like it's pretty bad in some places,
yeah.
with people being more threatening towards ethnic minorities in China. Like
Oh,
racism
no.
is a real problem over there. So it's nothing to like, just gloss over. It's a huge thing.
Yeah.
You know.
No, absolutely.
Together with diplomacy. Finally, all our priorities go directly to our core sources of national strength. And we define strength broadly because a truly strong country is strong in many ways at once. Real strength isn't bluster or bullying, and it's not based in military power alone. Real strength is that and more. It's making sure our most valuable commodity as a nation, our human resources, can meet their full potential. It's a flourishing democracy and an innovative and inclusive economy. It's the ability to bring countries together because they trust us to lead, and no one can unite others like we can. It's having our diplomats walk into buildings around the world and be respected because they have the confidence and trust of the American people. And it means leading with our values. That's what I want to close on today. At our best, the United States is a country with integrity and a heart. That's what makes us proud to be Americans, and why so many people around the world have given everything to become Americans. That includes members of my own family and many of your families too. The Biden administration's foreign policy will reflect our values. We will stand firm behind our commitments to human rights, democracy, the rule of law, and we'll stand up against injustice toward women and girls.
By the way, he said that they'll stand firm towards commitments to democracy and human rights, but he also said earlier in the speech, and we saw it, that there will be no efforts to spread them.
Yeah, I know. Hang on, just finish the last of it, and then we will talk about the end of it.
LGBTQI people, religious minorities, and people of all races and ethnicities. Because all human beings are equal in rights and dignity, no matter where they live or who they are. We will respect science and data, and we will fight misinformation and disinformation, because the truth is the cornerstone of our democracy. We'll work with Congress whenever we can on the takeoff, not just the landing, because they represent the will of our people, and our foreign policy is stronger when the American people support it. We'll build a national security workforce that reflects America in all its diversity, because we're operating in a diverse world, and our diversity is a unique source of strength that few countries can match. When we don't have a diverse team, It's like we're conducting diplomacy with one arm tied behind our back. This is a national security imperative and a personal priority for me. We'll bring nonpartisanship back to our foreign policy. There was a time, as the saying goes, when politics stopped at the water's edge. Secretaries of State didn't represent Democrats or Republicans. We represented all Americans. Some might think the idea is quaint now. Well, I don't, and the President doesn't either. We will balance humility with confidence. I've always believed they should be the flip sides of America's leadership coin. Humility because we aren't perfect, we don't have all the answers, and a lot of the world's problems aren't mainly about us, even as they affect us. But confidence, because America at its best has a greater ability than any country on earth to mobilize others for the common good and for the good of our people. Above all, we'll hold ourselves accountable to a single overarching measure of success. Are we delivering results for you? Are we making your lives more secure and creating opportunities for your families? Are we protecting the planet for your children and grandchildren? Are we honoring your values and proving worthy of your trust? It's the honor of my life to serve as your Secretary of State. And I'm aware every day that we're writing the next chapter of our history. It's up to us whether the story of this time will be one of peace and prosperity, security and equality, whether we will help more people in more places live in dignity, and whether we will leave the United States stronger at home and in the world. That's our mission. That's our opportunity. We will not squander it. We serve the American people, and we will do everything we can to make you proud. Thank you very much.
Yeah, so overall, it was definitely okay. I'll say that. So there was a few things I did want to touch, though. So a few minutes before he stopped there, he did say that, like, hey, we will intervene militarily based on our values and self-defense and whatnot. So we can at least guarantee that some kind of line will be drawn for military action. So that's at least a good thing. I think for the whole like nonpartisan thing, I hope that becomes kind of a thing again. Because I would like our foreign policy to be less politicized. I know sometimes in a way that could be inadvertently kind of like a weird thing for people to say, and that can kind of mean in a bad way. But I think he kind of means that in a good way. So like for our foreign policy, when he says like, "Hey, we need to be more nonpartisan about it," like that'd be kind of nice because it'd be a lot better if we could have more agreement in Congress about like what we're doing, because it just seems to be very very divided. And I want us to be more united on like what steps we take on foreign policy. So, it's one of those things,
Yeah, I think that on the whole, the speech netted out to decent. Could have been worse. Could have been a lot better. I don't really have too much else to add because I gave my thoughts throughout the speech. But what I will say, and we can do this as a separate video, perhaps even tomorrow. I'm glad that they're even having a retaliatory approach towards Iran, and their militias. Because if it was Bernie Sanders, it's very possible that they would just let Iran do whatever they're going to do and say we're bad.
Yeah, so I don't know if you have it because I know I posted into that chat earlier. I think it was like 10 hours ago, so you would probably have to scroll way up though. But
Yeah.
I did post earlier that Tony Blinken did say to reporters that we will respond to the attack, and it was gross and like awful and whatnot.
Yeah.
So
That's true.
to me that sounds like this. That sounds like the noise of F-16s taking off. To me, that's what it sounds like. I mean,
Well, there you go.
well, I mean, he said that last time. He said we will respond last week, and we did. Well, he said we will respond, but that was a few days before we actually responded. So, and I'm just glad that we're gonna respond to Iran because it's pretty awful. So, You know, well, it's like I also said in that chat. You know, I hope this time. I hope the response is bigger because they clearly didn't get the message the first time around. So it might be more in our favor to step it up a little bit.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I would agree with that. So I don't really have anything else to say tonight. Was there anything else that you'd like to add before we go off air?
I guess like one thing I'll say is sometimes he brings more mixed messages. I would always say that when it comes to him, when he's giving those big speeches, he comes off a little bit more isolationist. But I think when like he's actually speaking to reporters and when people are asking him in like the newsroom and stuff like that, he comes off a little bit more hawkish.
Yeah.
So I'll say that though, like he's pretty big on sanctions. He's a and stuff like that. And I know he's spoken out, and I know we've slapped some more sanctions on like like Belarus and Russia and whatnot, and our support for Navalny and all those kind of things. And also we put sanctions on the Houthi rebels and stuff like that. And I know that like when he talks to like real time when it comes to news, I think he's a little bit better because that's when I think you see a little bit more like the hawkish side, I guess, quote unquote. I think when he does these big announcement kind of things, he's a bit more charming to people, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. A bit more charming. Yeah. Well, there you go. So thanks to Henry for coming on earlier, and thanks to Anthony for sticking with us the whole time. That was Secretary of State Antony Blinken laying down the general overview of the Biden doctrine going forward. I think that, like I said, it was decent. I think that, Biden's somebody who gets dismissed as being a shill for China. This is anything but. His policy is being anything but. He's actually being more substantively protectionist than the Trump administration in many ways. And I look forward to seeing what's going to come from this, but I still am obviously very skeptical. And I'm never somebody to write off somebody. I always try to give people credit where credit is due. And I think that there were a lot of parts to this speech that were better than I expected them to be. And the parts that were bad were right where I expected them to be bad. So on the whole, it was, it was positive in that sense. And it could have been a lot worse. And compared to Trudeau, it's obviously, it comes across as hawk-pilled. But what I will say is that I do daily videos here, daily streams. So be sure to subscribe to this channel. I know we got a lot of new subscribers as of late. But if you haven't subscribed yet, I do daily content. And additionally, if you'd like to support me, you can check me out over on PayPal, on Ko-Fi, and on Patreon. And with that, I will see you in the next video. So take care, everybody, and stay based.